So, a bunk rumor about Ovechkin gets traction yesterday. And now today, um, Mike Bossy is quoted as saying that the New York Islanders should trade John Tavares. Trading a superstar player, it's a bad idea. I'm going to say right now, it's a bad idea. You look at trades for guys like Gretzky, Yager, Lindros is the opposite. But in a lot of cases, when you're trading a big name, big player, whether it's an Ovechkin or it's a Tavares, you have to get certain pieces back. Once I'm going to try my best at doing some math here, and I'm going to try my best not to do NHL 17 math. So let's say you've got to rebuild. You got to trade your superstar player, right? But you got to think about it from the point of view that there's two different types of teams that are trying to trade a superstar player. You're either a rebuilder or you're a contender. If you're middle of the road, well, it's harder to project what you're going to want. So let's look at it from a rebuild point of view. You want draft picks. So you're going to want 2 first-round picks, I would think would be the starter. I want 2 first-rounders. You might even want 3. Then you want 1 A-plus prospect. You want 1 prospect that you know is going to be a star player. Plus, you're going to want a roster player. Because by trading out a big star, whether it's a Tavares or an Ovechkin, you're going to go to a rebuilding team and say, all right, we want 1 of your prospects, we want 2 first-round draft picks and a roster player. Because for a rebuilding team, they might be willing to part with that. Okay. A contender, you don't really want those first-round draft picks, right? Because you're not looking at a situation like Phil Kessel, where those draft picks are going to turn out to be Sagan and Hamilton, right? So for a contender, you're looking for probably 2 young players, 25 and under, probably on their roster. Let's say let's say Pittsburgh wants another superstar. Let's use them as an example. You're going to say, all right, Jake Gensel, Brian Rust, just as 2 examples. You're going to want, from a contender, you might want 3 draft picks, and they could be firsts, seconds, combination. You're getting numbers for this star player. The problem is this. Let's say the Islanders trade Tavares. Let's just say they shoot themselves in the foot. Let's just say this. Barclays wants them out. Barclays Center said, we don't want anything more to do with the Islanders. This is a bad idea. We're sorry we did this. This is for basketball. We're not making any changes to our arena to suit hockey. It's not made for hockey. It's not going to be. The Islanders then are looking at probably a home in Queens or going back to the newly renovated Nassau Coliseum and what could be the greatest comeback of all time, next to the Winnipeg Jets, of course. A return to Nassau and the team returning to respectability and winning ways and fans, lined up around the block to get in the building. That is the best scenario for the Islanders. I apologize to Quebec fans, but that is the best scenario for the New York Islanders, is to return to sort of their heyday. And you need Tavares for that. Now, from a contender, so I'm thinking like a Pittsburgh, you're taking 2 players off their roster. So they're taking a superstar back. They're a contender. They've probably got depth to bring guys in. You're taking 3 prospects. And then you're looking as well, what's your weakness? So if you're the Islanders, if you're the Capitals, what's your weakness? Capitals are going to want defense. Because look at what's walking out the door. But here's the other problem. whether it's a rebuilding team or a contender taking on a Tavares who's up for a new contract and is going to want a lot of money, or an Ovechkin who's already getting paid a ton of money, you have to find a team with cap room. A contender with cap room, there's not very many of those. There are right now. But come August 1st, most of that cap space is going to be used up. Rebuilding teams, I look at where Toronto's at, okay, as a for instance, and Toronto fans talk a lot about Tavares. There's a lot of players who are going to want to get a raise, but you're not getting Tavares without losing one of your prized players. And it's not as simple as just saying, well, we'll just give him Nylander and a first. We'll give him Nylander and a first and Gardner. No. Now, it is Garth Snow. I will give you that it is Garth Snow. But trading a bona fide star player, a centerpiece of a franchise, and trading within your conference, like for the Islanders, let's say they traded with Toronto. There's a prospect, there's an outside chance that they're fighting Toronto for the same wildcard spot next year. Do you really want Tavares on their team? No. When you look at trades, and this is something that you have to consider when looking at them, if you're trading in your division, you want more than you do if they're in your conference. But if they're in your conference, you want more than you do if they play in the opposite conference. Because you only play them twice a year. The odds of playing in the Stanley Cup Final are remote. And yet, there's connections between the current Nashville Predators and Pittsburgh Penguins that are in the final. There are connections there. So it happens. And it reminds me of back in '91 when the Penguins and the North Stars met in the Stanley Cup Final. And there were players who had been in that dressing room 6 months earlier, and now they were against each other. Where I don't pay a lot of attention is superstar trades are very rare, and they're rare for that reason. Look what the Blues got for Gretzky, or the Kings got for Gretzky. The Blues, he left as a free agent. He played there for a month and a half. He had decent chemistry with Brett Hull, as expected. Not quite the set the world on fire chemistry as expected. And then he went to the Rangers, where he was expected to set the world on fire again, and it never really worked out for him there, because at that point his body was kind of broken down. But when he was traded to St. Louis from the Kings, partly because he was a rental, he didn't really get anything back. And when you look at what the Oilers got for Gretzky, and I love Jelena, and I love some of what those pieces gave. None of them equate. All of them together don't equate to Gretzky. And yes, people will point this out. Peter Pocklington's trade was more about bailing out his businesses than actually making a hockey trade for Gretzky. There was a lot of cash that went from the Kings to the Oilers, and then went from the Oilers to Pocklington's businesses. It started Peter Puck down the road to no longer being the owner of the Edmonton Oilers. And I mentioned to the other night trading Jágr. It's true. The Penguins were in a lot of trouble. But it didn't help the Penguins franchise trading away Jágr. Yes, Jágr cost the team a lot of money. But fans don't show up in droves when you're trading away your best players and bringing back spare pieces that don't add up. And your team wins less games, you're going to get less gate, you're going to make less money. Part of the trick in sports is you have to weigh, and it's cynical. It's not just about winning and losing if you're an owner. It's about, I'm going to make this amount of money. I'm going to lose this amount of money. And this is what drives fans of the Canucks nuts with the Aquilini family. They know if they can get a team that makes the playoffs and gets 3 or 4 home gates in the playoffs, even if they go out in the first round, that's a lot of money. That can help them break even for the year or make big cash. So they're fine with that. It's not just about winning a Stanley Cup. They'd love to win a Stanley Cup with more gates. But if you go to them, and there are certain owners like this that will sacrifice the long-term team ability to win in favor of one more run at a Stanley Cup playoff because that gets them more money. And the smart owners see the long-term picture, and some don't. And I'm not saying the Aquilinis don't. I'm saying they're trying. They seem to be trying to do both, which is why retool gets used a lot with Vancouver, which is why Vancouver won't even be mentioned in a John Tavares trade. And yet, Canuck fans will be more than happy to say Tanev, a first, Mason Raymond, and Ballard. Oh, no. Ballard, Raymond, Bullet, Boulis, Brandon Reed, 2 firsts. No. Leafs fans. It'll be Kessel, a first. No. I I say this because every team has these fans that think they can take their spare parts, add a couple first-round draft picks, and a team will jump and go, we'll give you Tavares. We'll give you Ovechkin. Thank you for the spare parts. It is my favorite part of armchair GMing. It happens with every fan base, and it is one of my favorite things in hockey because it's so ridiculous. And NHL 17 doesn't help. Part of the reason, and I'll mention this here, part of the reason why is I sit and try to figure out how you trade a big name player. Part of the reason I can't play NHL 17 and make trades and do stuff on my channel is EA hasn't figured out how the hell to measure a player's worth to a team yet. I shouldn't be able to trade 2 first-round draft picks and a couple of pieces and get Sidney Crosby. But they've made it possible. Because it was impossible a few years ago. Fans complained you can't trade for Crosby, which made sense, and now you can. So, yeah, they can't get it right. And it's weird because I'll make a trade, I'll look at my team after and go, oh, I feel bad. I just gave up crap, and I got back like this superstar or this top 6 forward for 3 guys who were never going to make it. But because the game grades potential above actual skill, I get the skill, they get the potential, and I already know from previous GMs and franchises that those guys aren't going to work out. It's criminal. Criminal. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. And this is where it gets crazy. Again, as I said last night about the Ovechkin thing, and now I'm saying about Tavares, it gets crazy. Because I don't think Tavares goes anywhere. I think he stays in New York for this coming season. I don't think anybody has the pieces that the Islanders are going to want. And if they do, they're not going to want to give them up for a Tavares who could be a rental. This is the dilemma. Do you negotiate with them a year in advance for that contract? Maybe you have to before you make that trade, but which team's in that position? As always, the trick is fans have to show their work. For me, they have to show their work. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And again, rebuilding teams and contenders have different needs. And the other last thing, if you're an Ovechkin or a Tavares, you don't want to go to a rebuilding team. You want to go to a contender. So while a rebuilding team may have the best pieces for an Islanders team that wants to build up its depth and build up its star power in the absence of Tavares, Tavares may not want to go there. And that can mean they have to make a trade with a contender, which means they get potentially less pieces that they really want long term. It is really difficult. So I apologize to Mike Bossy, but I just don't see a way that it happens. Let me know why or why not in the comment section below. And thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe. The buttons are your friends.